Welcome everyone in this room to this special recording of the Eco Stylish podcast, coming to you straight from our summer event at the heart of Chelsea. I'm Lina Vaz, the founder of Eco Stylish, and I'm delighted to introduce a very special guest today, Rebecca Morter, who is the founder of the Lone Design Club. She has been a trailblazer in redefining how we shop, connect, and support independent brands and designers who are committed to transparency and sustainability. Today, we'll be diving into her journey in building Lone Design Club, exploring the challenges and successes she's encountered along the way. Rebecca, thank you so much for being with us today. And let's start at the beginning, how everything started with Lone Design Club. What was the inspiration for you?
So my background's in luxury fashion, and I worked for people like Alexander Wang, Paul Costello, Simone Rocha many years ago. When I left university and started working in the industry, I was working part-time for myself as a side hustle, building my own women's wear brand. And I launched it because London Fashion Week, or the British Fashion Council, essentially approached us and said, like, this is, you've got a great business, you've got a great following, why don't you properly launch this as a brand? We'll support you. So that was the beginnings of my journey, of my entrepreneurial journey, of kind of working for myself. And that's when I encountered, whilst it's so exciting and amazing and there's a lot of pros, it's really, really hard to build and grow a business. And nobody talks about it enough. Financing, cash is absolutely critical. It's really hard to get hold of. When you do get hold of it, are they the right investors? Are they not? And then finding the right people, building that team around you is absolutely key. And that's probably the journey, or the part of my journey from my business, from my brand to Lone Design Club, that has been probably one of the biggest challenges that we've always had, which is natural for most companies. So I launched my own brand, which was exciting, and amazing, and we got to our first fashion week and we expected, order books ready, we'd be taking orders, we'd be selling to stores, and really it was the beginning of something pretty exciting. Not one person at Fashion Week that at our first one took any orders, and we were just gobsmacked. How do you do business? How does anybody in the fashion industry survive? How do people get orders? How do you get into stores? This is madness. And that for me was a big turning point, where it was, I'm not building this as a hobby. This has to be a business. It has to be commercially viable, and it has to grow. So what do we need to do to be able to get in front of people that are actually going to pay to purchase our products and sell into their stores? I remember being at Fashion Week and just thinking, how is nobody here bothered that they're not making any money, and they have no idea how they're going to build their next collection or sustain the business, but pay their rent or whatever.
And when was the moment where you thought, I'm going to do something about this, and how did Lone Design Club came about?
Yeah, so Lone Design Club, it didn't come from that. It came from, I've never been interested in building a novelty brand just for the sake of it. If it's a business, it has to make money. It has to be commercially viable, and that's not from a capitalist perspective. That's from the point of view that you have to build a team, you have to pay staff. I have to get paid to pay my rent, everything like that. And so that side of it was really challenging, and it was really looking at, okay, how are we going to build a business that is showing growth and commercially viable? And where we saw success was when we went direct to consumer in real life. And we started experimenting with trunk shows, pop-up stores, just lots of little things that we could do on our own. And the results were amazing. The amount of people that would come down and visit, the experience that we were creating, the margins were so much healthier. The average order values increased, quadrupled, because the ability to sell in real life, to upsell items, to share your story as the person passionate behind the brand with a consumer. And we grew a really core network of followers that would spend a lot with us, but they were all from the kind of editorial, the finance, or the sector that was very, very healthy for a small business like us. But it was all about the in real life moments. As we started to get more serious about how actually we were making our money, I went out to my network at Fashion Week of other brands and was like, look, we want to run more and more pop-ups. We've seen the power. There's, you've got social e-com, you've got wholesalers, but there's no route to market for brands in the physical world. So essentially went about to change it, and that was the early days of what then turned into be Lone Design Club. Was we started running community-led collaborative pop-ups with amazing brands, some of which today are just absolutely flying, which is so great to have known them all those years ago. And from that, it wasn't until 2018 that one of my business mentors at the time. So whilst I didn't come from the finance sector, I was very good at surrounding myself with people that had skills that I didn't. So all my mentors were finance, investment, whatever, everything that I didn't have. But it was in 2018, and we were actually in Somerset House in the Rose Cafe, I think it's called. And everything changed. It was the day that House of Fraser and Debenhams started reporting losses, and the high street was shifting. Our model was growing. We had customers that would come to our pop-ups. We're opening kind of one a month-ish, or one every few months. And the two of my NEDs were like, look, you're making actually good money from this platform. Your growth rates are 200% every few months in terms of brands and customers. The demand from the world for something to change was obvious. And that was when I made the decision to jump sides. I was interested in the fact that I could actually support businesses that really needed this channel, and it didn't exist, as opposed to being another brand in a very saturated, very unsustainable industry.
And for the people who are not so familiar with Lone Design Club, can you explain the business concept? Because I'm familiar because I did a bit of research, so I know you do pop-ups where you have a lot happening and people can interact and do lots of different activities. But can you explain to those who are not so familiar with it?
Yeah, so it's kind of where this was going. So, we'd experimented a lot with pop-ups. Essentially, Lone Design Club is just a formalised version of what we launched years ago. And really, it's about how can we help earlier stage, direct-to-consumer, digitally native businesses into physical retail. That's it. It's just how can we build a stepping stone journey for brands to have a cost-effective space in a prime retail location where they can bring their customers, they can learn from them, they can get that feedback, and then they can flourish. So from that day, the business has been going 6 years now. Now we work with over 3,000 brands continuously that we help into retail, mostly across London and the UK, but also Italy, and we did a little bit in China. We work with 20 major landlords, so all of the UK's major landlords, and we're essentially commissioned to activate their spaces on their behalf. One of the biggest challenges now is obviously we jump from the fact that brands can't find access, or they don't have that access to prime retail, which still is a challenge, less as much as it was. Now the challenge is more on the landlord side. And this is where we've evolved the business. You're constantly pivoting in business, but really these past few years after COVID, the challenge the landlord has is your high streets and your retail destinations are full of copy and paste locations. You've all got the same Zara's, Uniqlo's, Boots, whatever.
Lots of empty shops as well these days.
Yeah, so on average there's 14% empty shops across. Some centres are much worse, 20, 30%. And they're troubled and they're challenged. It's not they don't have the demographic, it's that they've let their centres decay. Essentially, they haven't kept up with the fact that people want, you don't go into a store now just to buy something. You go in for experience, community, and storytelling. Those are three words that I continue to use now, that I used right back the day that I set this business up. And that hasn't changed, because people need that space to be excited and to explore and be immersed and escape. 90% of emails that an agent or a landlord receives is from a small brand that they can't be bothered dealing with because they're not going to pay for a 5-year lease minimum. And they'll immediately disregard them. They don't put it onto a CRM. They don't have any processes around nurturing, incubation. Go look at our short-term leasing opportunities. Have a look at our pop-up spaces. None of that.
And what's your selection criteria for the brands that you bring on board?
So we have two parts to the business. We have Lone Design Club, which is currently undergoing a transformation, as we kind of refine the business a bit more. But Lone Design Club itself is a retailer or a marketplace. We only work with brands that are vetted according to sustainability criteria. And this is like the face of the business. This is what we started. This was the community that was grown.
And as a founder, how have you adapted your leadership style as the business evolved? What have you learned?
Yeah, this is a really good question. You are learning so much every single day. You're constantly out of your comfort zone. You'll wake up, now less so, but in the early days, I would wake up in the morning and it would be either great, it would be like euphoria, because everything was so amazing, something amazing had happened or hit my inbox. I would close the day in absolute terror. You never have a day of steadiness, and the minute you do, you just can't get complacent, which is not a nice word. The moment you start to get feel steady and comfortable, shit's about to hit the fan. So the best thing is to take a few steps back and go deep into the numbers. I think the big things I've learned is to be a good leader, compassion and empathy is so much more important than anyone gives credit for. And the most important trait is self-reflection and self-awareness. Because if you can't sit there and analyze what you could have done better or how the situation went from somebody else's lens, and you can't gain a perspective and that sense of empathy, you won't ever grow as a person. And it's very limiting to the whole business and your teammates. There's this one thing that everyone says, which is, being a good leader is take time to hire, fire fast. This is the one that I've struggled with the most, because you want everyone to work out and you want to make it work and it to all go well, and you're always looking at what can I do better to support this person. But actually, the sooner you realize they're actually not the right person and you don't allow emotions to come into it, is one of the best traits to have.
Any final advice for people who are launching their own business?
People that are launching their own business?
Yes.
Oh God, so many things. Is anyone here launching their own business?
Well, I
has one. No?
Maybe so. Yeah.
Maybe? What kind of business would you launch?
Like wellness yoga.
Okay, amazing. Finances, know your numbers from the get-go and be really strong on your financials. Margins are everything. I assume for a wellness business you wouldn't raise funds, but if you ever did, the world is different now. You can't raise money for the sake of raising money. You have to, if you raise it, it's to become profitable. So which is good in my opinion. So I would say, know your numbers. I would also say start really, really focused. So just one product, one identity, one thing that you do. This yoga brand or wellness brand, if it's a product, just start with one or a very, very limited few pieces. Build a brand around that. So the aesthetic, the type of person you're targeting, make it so focused that you can see her walking down the street and it's 1 in the 50 that walk past, will immediately drop everything and buy this. Don't try and appeal to everybody, it doesn't work. And lastly, what would some last advice be? Keep going. Don't give up. My chairman has said to me since the day I met him, businesses don't fail, founders quit. Easier said than done, but just keep going. Even in the darkest times where everything around you is blowing up and all you want to do is cry and hide under a rock, you just keep going. And somehow, most of the time, things work out.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and a big thanks to everyone here in the room. Let's remember that each of us can create a change through the choices we make and embrace pre-loved fashion and support sustainable brands. We're committed to hosting more in-person events where we can shop, swap, and hear inspiring stories from amazing talents in the fashion world, both here and online. So stay connected for updates on future eco-stylish events, and be sure to sign up to our monthly newsletter and follow us on social media. Until then, keep being eco-stylish.